What happens when the owner of 13 warehouses walks into one and finds the security guard knocked out cold at the front door? Brayden Ford had built his life off second chances. He bought the struggling warehouse chain 7 years ago, when it was about to go under. The previous owner hadn't paid attention to anything except profits. Brayden changed that. He cleaned house, rebuilt the company from the ground up, and made sure every new hire was screened, trained, and heard. But lately, something fell off. Customer complaints were climbing at the Westbrook warehouse. Orders delayed. Packages misplaced. A couple of staff quit without notice. Brayden asked the district manager what was going on. Just some growing pains, he said. Turnover happens, we're training replacements. But Brayden had heard that before. He wasn't the kind of guy to sit behind a desk while things rotted on the floor. So he shaved his beard, changed his hair, grabbed a pair of steel-toed boots, and created a fake resume. Said his name was Cal, and that he'd been doing warehouse work in Missouri before moving to town. No one at Westbrook had ever met him in person. In a company of over 400 employees, it wasn't hard to stay anonymous. When he showed up at 6:45 a.m. for his first day, the first thing he noticed was the front gate wide open. No buzz-in. No ID check. He walked right in. And there, slumped in a folding chair near the security booth, was the night guard. Head tilted back. Mouth open. Completely asleep. Brayden stood there for a moment. He wasn't angry. He was confused. A security guard asleep at the only entrance? He cleared his throat loud enough to get a reaction. Nothing. He stepped closer. Still nothing. Then the door to the warehouse opened. A young woman with her hair tied back in a tight bun walked out, holding a clipboard. "Oh, you must be Calvin," she said. "New guy."
"Yeah.
"First day."
I'm Olivia Moore."
"Floor supervisor." "Come on, I'll show you where to clock in." She didn't even glance at the guard. Brayden followed her inside. "Hey, is he okay out there?"
"Who?"
"The night guard." She looked over her shoulder.
"Oh, yeah.
"He does that sometimes. Don't worry about it, he's not even a real guard, just some guy they contract for overnight. He's harmless." Brayden's jaw clenched. "Is that normal?" Olivia gave a half shrug. "It's not my call. Talk to management." Inside, the warehouse was chaos. Forklifts beeped and swerved around corners. Boxes stacked too high teetered dangerously. 2 workers were arguing near the loading dock. A conveyor belt jammed and no one seemed to notice. It was loud, disorganized, and tense. Olivia walked fast, barely stopping to point things out. "That's the picking line. Stay out of there unless someone tells you otherwise. Bathrooms are over there. Break room's a joke, but it's all we got." Brayden tried to keep up. "How many people work here?" "Usually around 30. Right now? 21. We're short-staffed. District says no new hires until the next budget cycle." "And how's morale?" She laughed.
"Morale?
"People don't come here to be happy. They come here to survive." Brayden felt the weight of her words. He used to walk the floors of his warehouses back when he first bought them. He remembered the energy, the jokes, the way people helped each other out. This place felt like a prison by comparison. After a crash course safety talk, Brayden was handed a scanner and told to sort boxes by zip code. He kept his head down and his ears open. He watched as one guy, Marcus, carried twice his load without complaint. Another, Diego, helped a new hire when their scanner glitched. But he also saw a shift manager, a guy named Troy, chewing out a worker for asking about overtime hours. "You want more hours?"
Troy barked.
"Then work faster." Brayden clenched his fists. By lunch, he was soaked in sweat and frustration. He sat beside Diego in the break room. The kid looked no older than 20. "You been here long?" Brayden asked. "For months." "Long enough to know not to ask questions." "Why?" Diego lowered his voice. "Troy's tight with the district guy. If you speak up, Hours get cut. Or worse. Olivia's cool though. She tries to help when she can. Brayden nodded slowly. He'd seen enough. This wasn't growing pains. It was rot. And it started from the top. But he wasn't done yet. Not until he found out how deep it went. And not until he figured out what the hell a sleeping guard was doing protecting millions of dollars of inventory. Brayden returned after lunch to a new assignment unloading returns from one of the incoming trailers. Olivia handed him a high-visibility vest and told him to shadow Marcus, the guy he'd seen earlier moving at twice the pace of everyone else. Marcus didn't say much at first. He worked with a kind of mechanical rhythm box, scan, sort, repeat. But after 10 minutes of watching Brayden fumble with the return scanner, he finally broke the silence. You're holding it wrong. Angle it down so the red beam hits the barcode flat. Otherwise it won't read, and the system logs it as an error. Brayden adjusted his grip. Thanks. First day. I figured. Don't worry, you're doing better than most. They worked in near silence for a while. The only sounds the low hiss of hydraulic lifts and the creak of conveyor belts. Then Brayden asked, Is it always this backed up? Marcus kept his eyes on the trailer. Worse on Mondays. This is light. We're still catching up from last week. How far behind? Marcus paused, then said, 3 days. Maybe 4 if they don't approve Saturday shifts again. Brayden glanced around. Why wouldn't they approve overtime if you're this backed up? Troy says it's not cost-efficient. Marcus made air quotes with his gloves. We're supposed to hit the same numbers with fewer people and no extra time. Brayden didn't respond. He just kept unloading. By the end of the shift, his back ached and his shirt clung to his skin. He caught Olivia near the dock office and asked if he could speak to her privately. She looked hesitant but nodded and led him to the maintenance corridor, away from the cameras. I've seen warehouses under stress before, Brayden said. But this place feels like it's barely holding together. Olivia leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You're not wrong. Why hasn't anyone stepped in? She looked at him, measuring. I don't know where your angle is, Cal, but you're asking questions most people here are scared to ask. I'm just trying to understand what's going on. She sighed. District stopped listening months ago. We had a guy quit mid-shift last month after Troy screamed at him in front of everyone for mislabeling a pallet. HR said they'd investigate, but nothing happened. Troy's protected. He hits his numbers, so nobody cares how. What about you? Why stay? My mom's sick. I need the insurance. That, and I've got a few folks here who still rely on me to keep things from getting worse. Brayden nodded slowly. You're not the problem. That's obvious. She gave him a look. Be careful. Troy pays attention to people who talk too much. That night, Brayden didn't sleep. He went back to the security footage from the warehouse, something only he and his executive team had access to. He watched the overnight shift from 3 days ago. The guard was asleep in every frame from midnight to 4. At one point, 2 people walked in through the side door, weren't logged, and left carrying what looked like sealed packages. No one had reported it. The next morning, Brayden came in early and parked far from the main lot. He needed to speak to someone who wasn't on the payroll, someone who'd tell it straight. He found the cleaning crew supervisor, a quiet man named Ron who'd worked Westbrook for over a decade. Brayden introduced himself as Cal and asked him point-blank if he'd noticed anything odd during his shifts. Ron glanced around before answering. You mean besides the fact that half the lights in the back dock don't work and nobody's fixed the broken camera in Zone C? Brayden raised an eyebrow. How long's that been down? Going on 2 weeks. Reported it twice. No one's come. Do you know who those 2 guys are that coming around 2 in the morning? Ron stiffened. You saw that. I did. They're not staff. One of them used to be a driver, I think. Got fired last year. I told Troy when I saw them the first time. He told me to mind my business. Brayden's stomach turned. You reported to anyone else? Ron shook his head. Didn't think it'd matter. On the floor, Brayden was assigned to sorting returns again. This time, he worked next to a woman named Tanya. She was older than most, maybe in her 50s, and had a quiet but determined way of moving. She didn't speak unless spoken to. After a while, Brayden said, "You've been here long?" 12 years. He hesitated. "You like it?" She stopped sorting for a moment. "I used to. Before the last promotion round. They passed me over for Troy even though I trained him. Said he was better with numbers." Brayden was careful. "That happen often? You mean people getting skipped for promotions they deserved?" "Happens every year. You either play the game or get left behind." He didn't push further. The weight in her voice said enough. That afternoon, Brayden made a decision. He asked to speak to Troy directly. Said he had a concern about inventory shrinkage. Troy agreed to meet in the break room, where only a few people were sitting quietly eating. Brayden sat across from him. "Hey, I've been noticing some inconsistencies in the way returns are logged. Seems like some items go missing before they're scanned." Troy didn't look up from his phone. "That's not your concern." "I think it should be. I mean, if packages are disappearing." Troy finally looked at him. "Who are you, exactly? You've been here 2 days, and you're already acting like you run the place." "I'm just trying to help. Help by doing what you're told. You start pointing fingers without knowing the system, you'll find yourself off the schedule real fast." Brayden didn't flinch. "Is that how you handle problems? Threaten people?" Troy stood. "You don't know me, and you don't know how hard this job is. Keep your head down or get out." The entire room had gone silent. Tanya looked over from her seat, eyes narrow. Olivia stood halfway in the doorway and paused, clearly having heard the exchange. Brayden stood as well. Noted. That evening, he drove straight to the district office. He pulled up all HR complaints filed in the last 6 months for the Westbrook location. 5 had been submitted. All were closed without resolution. Each involved either Troy or a scheduling issue tied to him. He called his COO and told her to quietly schedule a security audit for Westbrook the following night. Then he reviewed the footage again. The same 2 men entered the warehouse at 2:13 a.m.
No by swipe. No camera acknowledgement.
In the footage, one even turned toward the broken unit in Zone C and smiled. Brayden's jaw tightened. By the end of the 3rd day, he'd seen enough. He gathered everyone on the floor at 4:30 p.m. Troy wasn't around. He'd left early, claiming a meeting with the district manager. Olivia stood quietly off to the side. The employees gathered hesitantly, unsure why a new guy was calling them together. Brayden stepped onto a pallet for height and said, "Before I say anything else, my name isn't Cal. My name is Brayden Ford. I own this company." Gasps rippled through the room. A few people stepped back. Olivia's eyes widened. Brayden continued, "I came here undercover because something didn't feel right. I didn't want to rely on reports. I wanted to see it myself." He paused, then said, "I saw workers doing the jobs of 3 people. I saw broken equipment left unfixed, safety ignored, and a toxic manager abusing his position. I also saw employees training each other without complaining, going above and beyond, and holding this place together with grit and pride." He turned to Olivia. "You've been trying to protect your team without any support. That changes today." Then he addressed the rest. "Troy has been terminated effective immediately. Security footage confirmed he knowingly allowed unauthorized access to the facility and ignored multiple safety violations. He will not return." Murmurs broke out. "I've also launched a full audit of this warehouse's operations. Equipment and staffing issues will be addressed. Anyone who wants to speak with me directly, my door is open." He stepped down. For a moment, no one moved. Then Olivia walked up and said, "That was overdue." Brayden looked at her. "I'm sorry it took this long." She nodded. "Now what?" "Now we fix it for real." The next morning, the warehouse was unusually quiet. Not in the sense that machines stopped humming or forklifts gave up their constant beeping, but in the way people moved more watchful, more alert. Word had spread fast. Brayden's reveal had cracked through the thick layer of resignation that had settled over the crew like dust. People weren't sure what came next, but for once, they believed that someone at the top had actually seen them. Brayden arrived early again this time, without disguise. No fake name, no false background. Just a plain navy jacket, jeans, and the same steel-toed boots. Olivia met him near the shipping corridor with a clipboard and a focused expression. "I've asked everyone to meet at the loading bay at 8 sharp, she said. "They're expecting you." Brayden nodded. "Good. But I want to be clear, I'm not here to make a speech. I'm here to listen." She gave a small nod and led the way. The gathering was tense. People leaned against pallets or stood with arms crossed, scanning one another as if waiting for someone to say what they were all thinking. Diego stood near Tanya, who had one hand in her pocket and the other gripping a half-crushed coffee cup. Marcus leaned against a metal post, his face unreadable. Brayden stepped forward. "I know what I said yesterday caught a lot of you off guard," he began. "And I won't waste your time pretending one speech fixes everything. It doesn't." He paused, letting the silence settle. "But I'm not leaving. I'm staying here for the next week. No assistants, no shortcuts. Just me, working alongside you. I'll be rotating across every shift and department. You'll see me on the floor. You'll see me on the line. And I'll see you really see you." A few people exchanged glances. He continued, "What I need from you is honesty. If something's not working, say it. If you've got ideas, share them. And if there's someone who's been holding this place together, I want to know their name." He didn't wait for applause. He simply nodded and stepped aside. Olivia took over, calling out assignments for the day. Brayden was placed on inventory with Marcus and Tanya. The three of them would be scanning incoming pallets, updating quantities, and flagging mismatches. As they walked toward the receiving area, Tanya spoke without looking at him. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who'd helicopter in, say a lot of words, and then disappear." Brayden kept his eyes forward. "You're not wrong for expecting that." They reached the intake station, where a line of trucks was already being unloaded. Marcus handed Brayden a scanner and a clipboard. "You'll need to record anything that doesn't match the manifest. We've been seeing a lot of short shipments lately." "Any idea why?" Marcus clicked his tongue. "Could be vendor errors. Could be someone up the chain skimming before it gets to us. No proof either way." They worked in silence for a while, scanning crates, opening boxes, comparing serial numbers. Brayden stayed focused, but he was also noting how Tanya double-checked every fourth box, how Marcus took the time to explain the new labeling system to a temp worker without looking annoyed. Around mid-morning, a voice cut through the warehouse PA system. "Brayden Ford to the main office." "Repeat, Mr. Ford to the main office." He looked at Marcus. "I wasn't expecting a call." Marcus shrugged. "Could be the district rep. They usually show up when their names are on the line." Brayden made his way upstairs. The main office overlooked the floor, but the blinds were drawn. Inside, a man in his early 40s stood near the window, arms folded. Pressed shirt, polished shoes, tablet in hand. "Mr. Ford," he said, extending a hand. "Didn't expect to see you here this long." "Clearly," Brayden replied, shaking it. "You're Dara, right? Regional operations." "That's right. I got wind of a situation at Westbrook. Thought I'd swing by to offer support." Brayden leaned against the desk. Support would have been helpful 3 months ago, when complaints started piling up. Darren's smile faltered. "We were told the issues were being addressed. Troy submitted weekly reports." Brayden raised an eyebrow. "And no one thought it was odd that every report said on track, while we were losing staff and delaying shipments?" Darren hesitated. "We trust our managers to be accurate." That trust just cost us over $30,000 in lost inventory and 2 long-term employees who quit without notice. That's not oversight. That's neglect. Darren shifted uncomfortably. What do you need from me now? I need a full audit of our other facilities. If this kind of rot was allowed to grow here, it might be happening elsewhere. Also, I want a list of every HR complaint that came through your desk in the last 6 months. Unfiltered. Darren opened his mouth, then closed it and nodded. Understood. Brayden didn't return to the floor until almost noon. By then, the temp worker Marcus had been helping was alone, struggling with a misaligned conveyor. Brayden jumped in, adjusting the rollers and clearing the jam. The kid looked relieved. Thanks. Thought I broke it. You didn't. It's just been poorly maintained. What's your name? Kevin. You new to warehouse work?
Yeah.
First job, since moving out here. Brayden looked him over. The kid was sweating, but his hands were steady. You're doing fine. Keep asking questions. That's how you get better. Kevin nodded and returned to work. Later that afternoon, Brayden met with Olivia in the back office. She had a folder open with names circled and notes scribbled in the margins. These are the folks who've been picking up the slack, she said. Some of them are on the schedule for 50 hours a week. Others are unofficially mentoring without pay. And we've got 3 temps who've been here long enough to earn permanent spots if we can clear the budget. Brayden flipped through the pages. Give me the names. I'll approve the conversions and the overtime back pay, retroactive to the start of the quarter. Olivia blinked. We've been asking for that since spring. I know. It's happening now. They were interrupted by shouting near the front dock. Brayden and Olivia rushed over to find a driver mid-30s, lanky build arguing with Diego. I told you I'm not waiting an hour for a signature. You people don't know what the hell you're doing. Diego stood his ground. You're not scheduled for priority. You refused to log the shipment number. I can't sign off without it. The driver stepped forward. You calling me a liar? Brayden inserted himself between them. That's enough. The driver turned to him, eyes flashing. Who the hell are you? I'm the owner, and you're done here. The man scoffed. You have no idea how this place runs. I have a better idea than you think. Diego followed protocol. You ignored it and escalated the situation. Clean out your truck and leave. We'll be contacting your dispatch. The driver muttered something under his breath and stormed off. Brayden turned to Diego. You handled yourself well. You kept it professional. Diego looked stunned. I thought I was going to get written up. Not a chance. You did the right thing. Brayden spent the evening reviewing equipment maintenance logs and updating shift coverage plans with Olivia. The broken lights in the back dock were flagged for emergency repair. The scanner shortage was addressed with a same-week order. But none of it felt like enough not yet. Before he left for the night, he walked the floor one more time. Marcus was still there, double-checking a late manifest. Tanya was helping Kevin stack returns. Olivia was talking to a group of temps near the break area, explaining their new schedules. Brayden stood quietly and watched. Not as an owner, not as a boss, but as someone who had finally seen what his company had become and what it still could be. There was a long road ahead, but at least now, they weren't walking it blind. By the end of the week, Brayden had worked every shift rotation pre-dawn receiving, overnight stocking, even the late freight train unload that ran until nearly midnight. He stayed in a modest motel 3 exits from Westbrook and refused to let anyone from corporate handle his travel or meals. He wanted no buffer, no excuse to detach. Friday morning, Olivia met him in the break room. She looked tired but more at ease than she had when they'd first met. She set a folder on the table and sat across from him. These are the updated maintenance reports and the revised schedule. We're still short 5 people, but with the new hires starting next week and your approval for the full-time conversions, we'll stabilize. Brayden flipped through the papers. How's morale holding? Cautious optimism, she said. Some of them are waiting to see if this is just a performance. They've seen promises come and go before. He nodded. That's fair. I'd feel the same. He didn't say more, and she didn't press. Outside the break room, the warehouse was alive with movement. Still rough, still imperfect, but no longer fraying at the seams. At 10 o'clock sharp, Brayden called a full crew meeting in the loading bay. This time, he didn't stand on a pallet. He stood on the concrete floor beside Olivia, eye level with the same people he had worked beside all week. I said I'd stay a week, he began. And I meant it. I also said I wasn't going to disappear. That's still true. He glanced at Marcus, then Tanya, then Diego. All three were scattered across the group, listening. I've spent every night reviewing every complaint, every maintenance request, every payroll irregularity from the last year. I've spoken with legal. I've spoken with HR. And I've made some decisions. He held up a sheet of paper, then lowered it again. First, I've terminated the district manager who protected Troy. He ignored multiple documented issues and failed to act when employees flagged serious misconduct. That kind of negligence has no place here. A few heads turned in surprise. No one clapped. Second, effective immediately, Olivia Moore is being promoted to site manager. Her leadership under pressure has been the only reason this place didn't collapse. She'll be given full hiring authority and a direct line to my office. Olivia's eyes widened slightly.
She didn't speak.
Third, everyone who worked overtime without compensation due to the staffing shortage will receive retroactive pay. You'll see that in your next check. He waited. Still no applause. Just quiet, measured nods. That was fine. Trust didn't rebuild with announcements. Now I want to address something else. I know some of you saw what happened with the driver yesterday. That kind of disrespect won't be tolerated. Not toward staff, not toward leadership, not toward anyone. We've issued a permanent ban on that contractor and are conducting a full policy review with our logistics partners. He looked toward Diego, who stood near the wall, arms at his sides. You handled that with more professionalism than many people twice your age. That matters. Diego gave a small nod, silent. Brayden continued. Before I leave, I'm also installing a new audit process. Every facility, every quarter. Anonymous surveys, direct feedback to my office, and surprise floor visits. Not to police you, but to protect you. He stepped back. That's it. Get back to it. As the crowd dispersed, Tanya approached him. She didn't smile, but her voice had a new texture, less guarded. You said you wanted names. People who held this place together. Brayden met her eyes. I did. She handed him a list scribbled on the back of a packing slip. Some of these people never complain, even when they should. They just carry the weight because no one else will. If you're serious about fixing this, start with them. He took the paper. I am. She nodded once, then walked off. Later that day, Brayden visited the temporary workers on their break. Kevin was sitting at the far end of a folding table, eating from a lunchbox. Brayden pulled up a chair. You're being converted to full-time on Monday. Benefits included. Kevin nearly dropped his fork. I thought temps had to wait 6 months. Not anymore, Brayden said. You've shown up on time, taken instruction without attitude, and kept pace with the rest. That's enough. Kevin blinked. Thank you. Don't thank me. Earn it every day. Kevin nodded, eyes still wide. By the end of the shift, Brayden had one final stop to make. He walked out to the front lot, past the shipping dock and toward the security booth. The night guard, the same one he had found asleep on his first day, was sitting upright now, sipping coffee from a thermos. Brayden knocked on the glass. The man opened the window. You're Mr. Ford. I am. The guard stood. Look, I know I messed up. I've been dealing with some health stuff, not an excuse, but I shouldn't have been on that shift. I wasn't supposed to be alone that night. The company that contracts me out cut our overnight pairings. Brayden studied him. I believe you. The man looked surprised. I've already terminated the contract. We're hiring our own internal security. You're welcome to apply, but there'll be new standards and oversight. If you're not up for that, I understand. The man rubbed his jaw. I appreciate the chance. Brayden nodded once and walked back toward the building. That evening, in the makeshift office Olivia had inherited, he sat beside her and reviewed the final transition documents. She handed him a small box with a return label on top. What's this? She shrugged. Your scanner and vest. Figured you wouldn't need them anymore. He opened the box, looked at the worn vest inside, and set it aside. I'll keep them, he said. Olivia leaned back. You really going to do this at the other warehouses? Every one of them. She gave a light exhale through her nose. They won't know what hit them. Brayden stood, collected his coat, and paused at the door. You're going to do good things here. I already was, Olivia said. He smiled faintly, not out of amusement, but out of respect, then left without another word. Outside, the dusk settled over the lot. Forklifts still moved inside, and a few workers lingered near the back entrance, tired but not defeated. Brayden watched them for a moment before getting into his car. He'd come searching for the truth. He found it in the exhaustion of overworked hands, in the quiet resilience of undervalued people, and in the broken systems that allowed both to go unnoticed. And now, they were building something stronger in its place. Something honest. Something earned.